everybody. Welcome to the HealthForce podcast, RamsandEliteFitness.com, RamsandEliteFitness.com. As many of you know, our interview series has been an ongoing venture for us here. I wanted to do something a lot different with our podcast instead of bringing somebody on and having a debate and everybody yells at each other or even ask, try to set people up on questions. We're a much different approach. I'm interested in creating discussions and allowing the guests really to talk and give their point of view. And today will be no different. We have Anthony Howard Croak coming on to discuss his 100-day diet, which will consist of ice cream and protein powder. Anthony, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Hey, man, I'm very, very happy to have you on. For the people that are listening,
I appreciate it.
Why don't you go ahead and start by giving a brief bio about yourself, kind of, how you found yourself in the spot that you are today doing a diet like this.
Right, sure. I know it's got to be an interesting story that leads you to the point of wanting to do something as extreme as this. But thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it giving me the chance to help get this out there a little bit more. But I'll start from really what started this whole abs and ice cream thing in the first place, which was back in 2011. I've kind of always been into fitness. Well, I say always. I started getting really into fitness in high school around the middle of my sophomore year. I grew up pretty overweight and didn't even really start playing sports until 8th grade. I went to a small private school up until 6th grade. We didn't have sports teams. Once a year we'd have a track meet against a couple other schools. So I really never had the opportunity. So after I started playing sports, ended up getting into fitness over the years and got really heavy into it around my junior year. And after that, I kind of started off how most people do, sort of the bro approach, low carbs, all the things, nutrient timing, all that, deep into it. And after a few years, I started running a log on bodybuilding.com and really liked that. I started it with a keto cut, the last one that I ever did. And I ran it for a while. It started getting pretty big. And a few years into it, some people started telling me about IFYM. I'd never even heard of it until people in my log started telling me to try it, and I was just like, you guys are nuts. I was like, this is absolutely ridiculous. There's no way that junk food works the same way. It was like your body processes things differently. I was still, thinking that, olive oil is better for you than, X, Y. So one day, what started the whole thing and what got me thinking maybe I should try it was I was in the advanced nutrition section on bodybuilding.com. And I started arguing with some IFYMers, and I was like, so you're telling me that if I had a diet that was all Oreos and protein shakes, that I could achieve the same results as if I was eating chicken breast, brown rice, and olive oil? And they're like, yeah, it wouldn't be good for you, but you could totally do it. I'm like, you guys are nuts. And then Alan Aragon came in the thread because he was, I don't know if he still is, I'm not on bodybuilding.com a lot, but I know at the time he was a moderator on there. And he started sort of trolling me and backing them up. And I'm like, well, I know who Alan is. I knew who he was even at that point. I was like, I still don't believe it, but I might start looking into it a little bit if Alan's supporting it. So people on my thread kept telling me, just try it. And I was like, all right, fine. So I gave it a shot, just sort of jumped right into it. I was doing sort of a carb cycling diet at that point. And I loved it. After a week, I was just hooked. And I was like, all right, this is phenomenal. This is what I've been looking for. Because I'd always hated the whole process of it because I knew how to get lean. And that's the thing. Like, any diet works. Every diet works by, eliminating calories. And that's not the problem. The problem is, how are you going to stick with it when you're done with that diet? And I'd always struggle with that, and I was never able to do it. I'd get really lean, and I'm like, well, I can't eat like this forever, and then I'd introduce carbs back and just blow up. And so I was like, this is actually something I found that's a sustainable lifestyle, normal eating thing. So I was like, I want to tell everybody about this. So people in my log actually had the idea of starting a YouTube channel. I'd never even considered YouTube. I have a film degree, but it never even crossed my mind. And after about a week of talking to people, getting ideas from them, I was like, all right, I'm going to do something with ice cream. And it was really a collaboration between talking to them and me that came up with the name of Abs and Ice Cream. And so the original project back in 2011 was 30 days of half my calories had to be from ice cream. The rest could be from anything. So I did it for only about 18 days, unfortunately, because I got a job actually as a bodyguard where I had to travel constantly. Like I was on a plane 1 to 3 times a day, 4 days a week, pretty much the whole time I did it. And I still regret it. Like I could have kept doing it and just shot from hotel rooms and stuff, but I've kind of just, dropped it. And then from there, sporadically, I would do stuff on the YouTube channel, just here and there, say I was going to start back and then not. And then I joined the Army in 2014, and after about 2 years in the Army, I got hurt. Well, I lost most of my vision in my right eye from a condition called histoplasmosis. Not too into that. It has nothing to do with this. But basically, vision went from 2015 to 5 out of 200 in a year. And then I tore my chest for the second time while I was getting my eye worked on and had my second complete pec reconstructive surgery. So long story short, I got medically retired from the Army. And so near the end of that process, I was like, well, now's the perfect time to start up my YouTube channel again. So I did another diet where I did 30 days of fast food. I basically just replicated Super Size Me without lying to everybody about it. And I controlled the calories. So, the thing wrong with that was he just arbitrarily ate 3 meals a day that could have been, any number of calories and, ate too many calories. So for this, I had a controlled amount of calories, 2,500 calories a day. And it had to be all the bad foods, though. It wasn't, this is how you eat well at a fast food restaurant. Right. So I'd have days on that where I just had ice cream or I would just have pizza. And I think I lost about 18 or so pounds on that. And then I get out of the Army and I decided I was going to devote all my time to YouTube and to my website where I blog and stuff. Because now that I was retired, I had a lot of time to really do this because I'm sure, as you know, it's a very slow process building up your online presence, building up stuff like that. So I was trying to think. It was really probably over the course of the last year getting out of the Army, plus a month or two after I was out, trying to think of an idea for my next project. Because I'd already done the 30 days of ice cream. Even though I didn't finish it, I still did it. So just replicating 30 days for 12 more days wasn't going to be a big deal. I already did the fast food. I was like, are people really going to care about another 30 days of X? So I was like, maybe I'll do 60 days. That's double the length. That'd be a little better. And I was like, 100 days has a much better ring to it. It sounds way longer. Even though it's only 40 days longer, 100 sounds perfect. So, yeah, and I'd always kind of kick myself for not finishing the first ice cream one. So I was like, I have to do ice cream. And so I spent about 2 weeks mulling it over because I was like, I don't want to commit to this because 30 days of fast food was hard enough. And that was, you have tons of options there. So I was like, I don't want to say I'm going to do this and then flake out on it. So waited about 2 weeks. I was like, I really need to do it. Talked to my wife a lot. She hates it when I do these things because she can't cook for me and it, throws everything off. But I was like, look, I need to do this. So finally decided to do it. And, the reason I do it is really because of that I sort of touched on where, it's a problem that, everyone has. You can't, and if you can stick to a diet, it's hard enough to stick to the diet and lose the weight in the first place when you're being really strict. But so many people have no idea what to do afterwards. You think you have to choose between fitness, looking good, looking how you want to look, whatever that may be, and enjoying food. And it's just not that way. So just want to, spread it as much as I can.
So could you give us a sneak peek so far? Because you're about, 33 days in, 35 days in?
I think 35, 36.
35 days in.
It was, 36, I think.
For those listening so far, is there anything that stands up to you as like, yeah, look, see, I can do this and get X results? Is there something that, if the average person was listening, that they would be surprised at so far in 30 days that you've been able to achieve on this ice cream and protein powder diet?
Well, I have lost a considerable amount of weight. It's slowed down the past week or two, but, that happens with any diet. You sort of, get a little burst at the beginning. You'll have pockets where you go up and down. But, yeah, I started this at a little over 192 pounds, and as of this morning, I'm down to 176. So the weight loss has been as fast as any other diet that I've done. So that's phenomenal. And then I had sort of expected to have maybe a little more than average drop in performance, endurance, stuff like that. But, sorry, just letting the cat out. It actually hasn't been anything other than what I've experienced in any other diet. So mood's been about the same. Energy's been about the same. I always get a drop in strength, especially on my presses, so I have been noticing that. But some things have been going up. Like my last workout was shoulders and tris. Tri strength and endurance went up, shoulders dropped. So really the main thing surprised me too, just because macros are not optimal. Protein is low because I only have 500 calories that I can use for protein, other than the small amount I get from the ice cream. So, I expected a performance drop. I expect a little more muscle loss than normal, but so far it's been, pretty comparable. So pretty happy about that.
So for the 100 days, did you have an outcome that you were looking to achieve throughout, like a specific amount of weight loss, or is this just going in to see what happens eating 2,500 calories a day of ice cream and protein?
Sure. Well, the main goal is just to lose as much weight as possible down to a point. So like if I were to say start approaching 4% body fat or something like that, I would actually turn it into a bulk. Like I don't want to get down to 150 pounds. So that's one problem that since I had the surgery I touched on a little over a year ago, at the start of my last 30 days of fast food thing, I was probably around 8 or 9% body fat, a little over 190 pounds. On this, I started at 192 pounds, probably closer to 16% body fat. So I'm going to be much, much smaller than I like to be and than I'm used to. So if I get really small, I'm not going to get down to, complete competition level leanness, since I know I'm not going to maintain that. So the main goal is to get down to at least 5 or 6% body fat by the end. And if I were to get there at, say, day 80, I would actually reverse it and start bulking with it, but keep it an extremely lean bulk. I think that would be actually better to show that I lost so much weight I had to turn it into a bulk at the end because it was coming off so well. So that's really the only goal, is just to show the weight loss and to show that it's possible.
I think what you're doing is super important. I know on my HealthForce podcast, we often do two main forms of communication. Number one, I try to produce good, so give people information that they can apply in their average life, like the average individual, put it into practice in their life, and, for the average mom or dad that wants to lose 10 pounds that they can use. The other thing that we do, though, is we also try to defeat evil, like that classic trying to make sure people aren't falling for the bad stuff. So I think what you're doing, and a lot that we've tackled on our podcast, is individuals that have, I don't know if you want to go as far, these are my words, not yours, almost scam-like tactics or selfish reasons to push product and service. So it brings me to my next question. Do you believe that a calorie is a calorie? And I know we touched on it a little bit earlier, but in regards to dieting, for you, does it come down to just calorie, going for a goal per day and trying to be in a deficit for weight loss and obviously the opposite for weight gain? Or does it come down to macronutrients need to be a certain percentage, or my sugar needs to be eliminated? Anything like calories versus things we often hear. What's your average intake or your average response?
Right. So for the most part, definitely I believe the calorie is a calorie is a calorie. I mean, calorie is unit of energy, and that's what it is, regardless of which one, what your macronutrients are. But obviously there are ways of optimizing it, which is why, I sort of say things like this, they're not optimal. Even if it were as healthy as anything else, even if it were as easy as anything else, it's not optimal because I'm not getting the optimal amount of protein. See how many times I can say optimal in a paragraph. But so, we have a lot of really good studies that show, the proper amount of protein you should get to optimize muscle gain, to prevent muscle loss, and to optimize athletic performance, along with, optimal amounts of carbs as well. So I definitely think that it's important to get as close as you can on a regular basis to your proper macronutrient intake goal that you have set. But as far as losing weight, I mean, you're going to lose the same amount of weight if you have 2,500 calories, regardless of what your macros are. There may be minor differences just because of NEAT, or not NEAT, the TEF, thermogenic effect of food. So just because, different calories break down a little bit more, protein, your body breaks down a little bit more of the protein than, say, the carbs or the fat one, but that difference is so small that it's nothing you're ever going to notice. So, if you're giving a technical answer, sure, it's a little bit different. But no, so that's kind of why I'm not too concerned about doing things like this where I'll have, severely low protein sometimes, because I'm still going to lose the weight. That's why I kind of expected to lose a little more strength than normal, or expected to maybe lose a little bit more muscle than normal, because I know I'm not optimizing that. But as far as the average person goes, that's the main thing that sort of ties into these scam artists, if you will, and that's sort of the problem. And even the people who aren't necessarily scam artists, like Gary Taubes. So the problem is there's sometimes science. I'm saying this, and it's completely sound wrong at first, but sometimes too much science can be a bad thing, because when the average person who's reading these books, who's getting all this information, who's trying to figure out what to do on a diet, they don't know enough to know what they need to know at first. So it's kind of like trying to teach neurosurgery to high schoolers. Like, correct. They don't even have the basics. They need to worry first about the very basis of how you lose weight, what you need to lose weight. Like, we have 300,000 people dying a year in this country of obesity, second only to tobacco. So the main thing we need to worry about is sugar making you a little bit fatter, or is sugar causing premature aging, or does sugar affect your gut health, and how does that affect your brain chemistry, all that stuff. Like, that stuff may be important, and there may be stuff to that we're slowly finding out, but the main problem we need to tackle is getting people to lose weight. So if you bombard all these new people who are trying to sort through all this crazy conflicting information with all this science and all these things are bad, these things are good, you're just going to confuse them, and you're going to make it that much harder. So we need to start off simple. This is what you need to do, and try to bring people in that way. It's not only going to make it much more approachable, but it's going to make it much more livable. Your average person isn't going to eliminate sugar for the rest of their life. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
So you're just setting them up to fail in the first place.
We've had some pretty good success with teaching our clients, like you said, by keeping it simple. I think two main things that stick out to me. Number one, I always tell people, if you're looking to lose weight, and you're an average individual, if you were to eat a little less than you're probably eating and exercise a little more than you're probably exercising, just those two simple goals, that's going to actually accelerate your progress. And then the second one, and this is a little more advanced, but still basic, the first law of thermodynamics, right? And this is what I get to with the calorie thing. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. So unless these individuals like Gary Taubes are going to disprove that and say it's not about calories, it's actually about sugar, and that you can actually eat below your energy expenditure, and as long as you don't consume sugar, you can gain weight. Like, until they disprove that, I don't think their arguments can really hold water. And it comes down to energy, because calories essentially are energy, and your body is going to be eating a certain amount of it, which is going to be intaking, and expending a certain amount of it. And that relationship, I think, is very, very important for people to understand. So that leads me to my next question is, how important is it for individuals, in your opinion, to track calories? I don't care if it's every day and they want to, complain about how hard it is. Is that something that you view as if we're looking at calories for the average person, is that something that they should consider doing?
It is. I think it's really important. And that's one of the problems that I see with the whole, CECO, IFYM thing, because it is more work. That's one of the draws of a low-carb diet, and that's what a lot of people I've talked to, why they resist it, because it's a lot easier to just say you can't have carbs, don't worry about anything else, which is so successful for these diets because carbs are your easiest, most accessible, highest, density per satiating value food. So if you cut those out, people probably aren't going to overeat. Like, anyone who's done a keto diet knows that just eating cheese and meat all the time is very filling. Right. So most people want simple. So that's one of the roadblocks I think that we have, other than getting people to believe this, because it seems so insane, is the fact that a lot of people don't want to count calories. And part of that problem is they don't realize how easy it is. Like, it is work for sure, but I mean, with the MyFitnessPal app, it makes everything so simple. And like, I have a little $20 weight scale I've been using for 7 years from Amazon. And I mean, it does take a little bit more work, but not much. Not much when you compare it to the fact that if you do one of the easy diets that you don't have to think about, that you can't eat so many things, and it's so much more work in the fact that you're miserable all the time. So I really do. I think we have to figure out how to bridge the two gaps of people believing it first and then being willing to put in that extra work and then realizing quickly that it's really not that much work. Right.
So we're going to switch gears a little bit and get into some what I call some fun questions. We actually are going to take some questions that were on my social media in regards specifically for you. So the first one actually is from my brother Ben, believe it or not. He says, I cannot imagine going 100 days without steak, chicken, or eggs. How are you finding this experience so far?
It sucks. It's completely terrible. That's one of the reasons. So like a lot of people ask me, aren't I worried that I'm sending the wrong message to people? Aren't I worried that,
Right.
13-year-olds are going to start doing this diet and, hurt themselves with it? I'm like, look, tell your clients. I've had a few people say, I saw someone post at the beginning of this to Alan that she was kind of distraught about my diet because a lot of her clients were wanting to try it. She's a trainer. And I just happened to see the thread. And I'm like, I told her, I was like, look, I'd be glad to talk to your clients about it and tell them to try it. Like, I guarantee you they're not going to stay on it for more than a few days max. Like, it might sound exciting just eating ice cream on the surface, but, I mean, it's terrible. You want to have real food. Like, it barely counts as chewing. You're hungry all the time. So, I mean, no, it's miserable for sure. That's kind of why, waited 2 weeks before I started because I knew it was going to suck. And, if I were single and lived by myself, it'd be a little bit easier. But, I mean, I have 3 kids and a wife who aren't changing their diets at all. So, I have to smell normal food constantly all day, every day. So, yeah, it's rough.
Yeah, and, I mean, I think – so even this – so a main aspect that I take away from what you're doing, too, is that you can enjoy foods that you actually enjoy, that you like to consume, right? So most people do like to have ice cream, and they feel guilty for consuming it most of the time. But I tell you what, even if you have like one bad weekend even of like fast food, right? If you have pizza twice in a weekend, I feel like crap. So, I mean, it's not necessarily like if we start to teach people, hey, you know what, you can consume ice cream every once in a while, that people are all of a sudden going to go rogue and just do what you're doing. So I agree with you there. Next question comes from John Morgan. He says, how many times a day are you actually consuming ice cream? And how does your stomach feel?
Okay. So for the first part, it's normally 2. So it varies. At first, I was trying to do it all at once just because I wanted to get it all shot in one sitting, which I only lasted a few days. So normally what I do is around lunchtime, I usually have half my ice cream, which is usually – I eat mostly Ben & Jerry's is what I do, partially because it's one of my favorite store-bought ice creams, and the pints work really well. They're usually about 60% of my calories. So I usually have a pint for lunch, and then – or between 4 and 6, I'll usually have the rest. But that's not for any timing reason or anything like that. It's just for the simple fact that my videos take anywhere from 1 to 3 hours to edit, and I don't start editing them until the kids get in bed, so I try to get them done before 1 a.m. every night. So I like to shoot earlier in the day just to make sure it's all done. And as far as my stomach, that is by far the most frequent question I get asked. That's all everyone wants to know. It's actually fine. Like, there's literally no difference than a normal diet at all, as strange as it may sound. Other than the few bad days I've had is because one of my techniques that I use when I'm really low in calories is I drink hot sauce. I really like hot food. So normally I'd be like eating like peppers and stuff like that all the time. Since I can't do that, like I literally have bottles of hot sauce that I'll pour some into a glass and just sip on it, or take shots every once in a while, just because, I mean, the same reason I drink tons of Diet Mountain Dew. I mean, it's just, sometimes you just need that. You need to feel like you're eating something or drinking something. And so that has messed up my stomach a few times, mainly because I don't really have any real food in my stomach. So it's, double the effect. But no, I'm not lactose intolerant at all. So, I mean, I assume this probably would mess up a lot of people's stomach if you are, but it's been fine.
Cool. I mean, and the lactose intolerant thing, too, that's something else that is still kind of coming out. People are looking into research of that. But I feel like now the average individual almost has an adverse reaction to dairy because of what they're told. Well, it's not. We're the only species that drinks another species' milk and blah blah blah. So I feel like that's probably where a lot of those questions come from, is thinking about like how dairy, like they view it in a negative manner. So all of this negative stuff should have an adverse effect on you. Next question from Melanie. She says, here we go. Digestive issues. With all that protein in dairy, she imagines that you would have indigestion. So besides the hot sauce, is there any like indigestion? You have a pint of ice cream, and do you ever feel like, oh my God, I got to burp and I can't? Anything like that? No indigestion. I've noticed pretty much after every pint I eat, I get really bad hiccups. But those are just a nuisance for about 5 minutes and that's done. So no indigestion at all. Next question from Josh Brandt, and this will actually be our last one for this segment, is what type of workouts are you doing? I think it's a good question. People are probably, interested to see how your energy levels are, and I know you touched on it earlier, but, I mean, are you still able to do all the sort of workouts that you've done prior? So I don't know if it's high intensity, low intensity. You can feel free to elaborate.
Sure. So for the workouts, I've pretty much done the same workout program, if you will, for the past probably like 10 years. I'm not one that believes in switching up all the time. I don't think it's necessarily bad, but I don't. So I do sort of your standard kind of body part bodybuilding type of split. So what I do is I try to go 5 days a week, and the way I set it up is, we'll just say Monday I do chest and bis, Tuesday I'm going to do legs and back, Wednesday shoulders and tries, and then the next day legs and back again. I try to do that twice a week, and then on the fifth day I repeat whatever came first. So if I started that week with chest and bis, on the fifth day I would repeat it, so that would get done twice. And so that just sort of cycles through. One thing gets done twice other than legs, which I like to hit twice. And I do pretty moderate intensity. I like to take 2 to 3 minute breaks in between most sets. So my workouts usually take a while. I've cut them down a lot since I started this, partially because I do have a lot less energy. Like, that always happens when I cut. I mean, it's inevitable. I know some people I read, like, I'm making gains every day on this cut. I'm like, I don't know how, but that's awesome. But I've cut them down from they were about 3 hours right before I started this to about an hour to an hour and a half. And part of that is just because I was gone all the time. And, my wife home with the 3 kids, like, stop going to the gym for 3 hours. Right. So that's a big part of it. But, 5 days a week. And I'm not doing any cardio for this. I like to do cardio, and I plan on starting back. I'd kind of stopped doing cardio for a while because the Army sort of made me hate it. Because when you go through all the ridiculous stuff I was doing, plus, being forced to do cardio all the time, I was like, running is the worst. I loved it before the Army, and I was planning on starting it up again, but about probably 2 or 3 weeks in, I was like, you know what, that's another thing. A lot of people think that you can't get low without doing cardio, without doing fasted cardio, so I'm just not going to do any. So absolutely no cardio at all. It's just lifting.
Yeah, so and I think that's actually important because you're right. People think they put cardio with like fat burning and et cetera, but I think this almost now makes the distinction even greater that it's a caloric deficit that you're creating, not so much, well, I'm doing just all this cardio and artificially doing it for weight loss, which is cool.
Right.
I've got two
exactly.
Right, I got 2 quick hitters for you, so maybe like 20 seconds on each, maybe 30 seconds. First one, what's the best ice cream that you've come across so far?
My favorite, it's a tie between 2 probably. Well, my very favorite ice cream, it has to be from a place called Maggie Moo's. It's actually Maggie Moo's and Marble Slab are the same company. It's just regional. But for some reason, Maggie Moo's seems better to me. There's none around here, so that sucks. As far as my favorite store-bought ice cream, it's either Ben & Jerry's Half-Baked or Ben & Jerry's the Tonight Dough.
That Tonight Dough is good. I've had that one a couple times recently.
It's so good.
How about any of the ice cream, quote-unquote, substitutes if you've had them, like Halo Top, Arctic Freeze? Have you had any of those on there, and are any tasty? Because I haven't had any.
I've had both. Okay, so I've had Arctic Zero probably a little over a year ago. I tried it. I'd seen people raving about it forever. I'm like, all right, well, I finally found it. You used to have to order it, I think, and normal stores started carrying it. So I was like, all right, sweet, I can finally try it. My wife actually got it, and it went straight into the trash can. We both tried about a bite and a half, and that was it. Arctic Zero is absolutely disgusting. I don't know how anyone could ever eat that. Maybe if you're, completely bro, 2 weeks away from a figure competition or something and you don't know what real food tastes like, maybe it'd be okay. But other than that, I can't see it. And I just tried Halo Top for the first time last week. And I tried birthday cake, which was horrible. That one in the trash can too. And then I tried regular chocolate. And it actually wasn't too bad. For what it is, it was like 260 calories for the pint. I was actually pretty surprised. So some people have said there's some pretty decent flavors. I wouldn't say you could go in any of them thinking it's going to taste anything like ice cream. But for the satiety value versus how many calories, Halo Top's got some okay flavors.
That's an area that interests me moving forward is people trying to recreate macronutrient-friendly options. But to this point, everything that I've tried, they're just not there yet with like the technology and taste. It's nowhere close. Nowhere even, like you said, palatable. Yeah. Arctic Zero was all of them. And every time I try to convince myself that it was good, like, you have a couple of spoonfuls, like, yeah, this ain't bad. Yeah, and then, like, as soon as everybody leaves the room, you throw it right in the trash, like you mentioned. All right, so we're going to actually I want to get a little more into some philosophy stuff, not necessarily about nutrition, but more so about the industry, our fitness industry, how we should communicate with the average person, because I feel like this is the critical sticking point that we have to tackle. The first one the first question that I want to ask you, things like Dave Asprey with Bulletproof Coffee, Bulletproof Diet. You've got Shakeology that has essentially an overpriced carbohydrate drink with a little bit of protein in it. You've got the demonization of sugar, gluten, artificial sweeteners, GMO, everything's bad. Is this sort of information, that like these sort of opinions hurting the average individual or helping, in your opinion?
I definitely think they're hurting the average individual because, like I sort of said before, it's muddying the already confusing waters. And then for things like that, like things that aren't just going too deep and too detailed into the science of what's good for you and bad for you, they're just literally completely, taking advantage of people using slick marketing. And everyone has the desire to belong to something, to belong to a club, anything like that. So if you can create a movement, like a CrossFit,
Correct.
Bulletproof, people feel like they belong to that. It's it's like the whole stereotypical, if there's a vegan in the room, they're going to tell you about it. People love that kind of thing. And so if you can give them a sort of place that they can belong, and it doesn't even require much other than being part of the online community and telling people about it. It's not a big time commitment. It's just something you can do, and it makes you feel good. So in that way, I can see why a lot of people think it's good, and a lot of people might say, hey, it's just, it's an outlet for people. It's making them feel good. But you're still lying to people. You're still spreading this bulletproof coffee. There's something magical about starting your day with has to be grass-fed butter in your coffee. It's just so ridiculous. And when you let people build these multi-million-dollar brands off of lying to people and then overcharging you for stuff, it's not like he's just telling people this information and he has a YouTube channel and he's trying to say this and people disagree with him. He has a multi-million-dollar brand with tons of different supplements and protein, all that stuff, and training courses that you can go to, all built off of lies. Same with, the Shakeology. You have all these different shake companies that are selling you the same thing you could get, probably worse than you could just go to bodybuilding.com and spend $30 on some ON whey and get something that's probably better for you. You have these people spending 4, 5, 6 times the amount on less protein. So you're literally just robbing people by taking advantage of how naive they are. So, yeah, I definitely think it's horrible.
Yeah, and it's such an emotional issue. Health and fitness, everybody wants to either look better, be stronger in the gym. Everybody has their unique goal, and when somebody can come to you and promise you that they have the magic path towards that goal, it's very, very easy. And I'm very careful on our podcast when we criticize individuals. I never go after the average individual. I don't say you're too stupid, you keep falling for it. It's completely taking somebody in an emotional, unstable environment in most cases. I know that sounds extreme, but people, when they see health and fitness, it tugs at you. It gets you. You watch it, you're hopeful. And we're almost creating a culture too. I see it with my clients. When we train people, they come on. I'll give you an example. We just talked to this, I'm not going to give her a name, but we just met this lady the other day, and she is so skeptical of the fitness industry. I've never met her before. We've never even talked to her before. And she's right from the get-go saying, I've tried a lot of trainers and I've tried a lot of people with advice and I've only gotten worse and I don't know if it's going to work. You guys sound like you know what you're talking about, but you don't. So I'm running into a lot of that, and it really is disheartening. Like you said, almost it's shameful is what it is.
It is.
So for you to do this diet, was there one individual or one train of thought out there that you saw and it ticked you off that you wanted to go on this diet to prove something? Did it have anything in that basis?
No, it wasn't really because of that. It was just kind of like a buildup of a whole, let's say a whole lifetime. So I'd probably been really into fitness, like I said, for, 5 or 6 years before finding this. But it was just the years of struggle that I'd gone through, like I said, because for a little backstory, I was, I think, 215 pounds my freshman year of high school, and solid fat. I couldn't even bench 135 pounds. I wasn't, big at all. There's plenty of people much bigger than that. I was never severely obese, but I was the fat guy. I was the fat one of my friends for sure. And when I graduated high school at 155 pounds, I lost most of it, was really lean, but it was a constant struggle. Like I sort of said before, it's easy to lose the weight, but then it's miserable to keep it off. And it's still, using those is still miserable to lose it, but you can sustain anything, like I'm doing this. It's kind of funny. This 100 days of ice cream is probably the most restrictive diet out there. Keto right now sounds fantastic just because, there's so many options. But, it was just because I had gone through so much pain, even during the diets when I was looking fantastic. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do when this is over. I remember one moment when I was near the end of that bodybuilding.com keto cut that started this whole thing, where I was about to graduate from film school, and I had planned on moving somewhere and working in film production, and I was thinking to myself, how am I going to maintain this muscle that I have and this leanness if I can't stop working and eat every 3 hours because I'm going to be on film set. Like I wasn't worried about sticking to the crazy diet. I was worried about having to eat every 3 hours because I thought I was going to completely lose everything. So it's just so painful and just so disheartening to think that you have to do that the whole time, that once I found out that you didn't, and since I was already doing something where I was trying to teach people about stuff, that I just figured, I need to start spreading it.
I'd like to talk about communication, primarily between like the fitness industry and the average individuals, because I think you're a perfect example of what we should be doing more of. And before I get into this, I want to break it down a little more for our audience. So as individuals who listen to our podcast, prior episodes, they may know some of this terminology where I start to call a certain wing of the fitness industry pseudo-experts, pseudoscience / fanatics. And then I see them on one side, right, on the extremes. The other side, we have these scientific researchers, the people that base their opinions in science research, and people like Alan Aragon, Brett Contreras, Brad Schoenfeld, you name it. There's a bunch of guys that I follow for my own education that are on this side. And what I'm finding is that there's pretty much 3 characteristics of an individual who is on the fanatical side. Number one, they're all in on one topic. I mean, their entire livelihood, their careers, they're about one thing. Whereas someone like myself, it's an abstract concept. It's getting people into shape. Like if they come out tomorrow and prove that sugar is the reason, it's not calories, I'll be completely fine because I'm not all in on calories. I'm looking at the body of evidence. Someone like Gary Taubes is going to be in big trouble if they come out and it's like proven without a doubt. It's all calories. Sugar doesn't, sugar and the effect on your insulin is very minimal on obesity. He'd be in trouble. He's all in on it. So therefore, he is not able to comprehend opposing viewpoints. He just, it feeling right off his face. He can't even understand it. So he's not open for a discussion. That's number one. Number two, fear mongering. I feel like, these individuals come out, they tell you artificial sweeteners, they cause cancer. If you don't get them out, you're going to be sick for forever. Again, it's playing on emotional strings and using fear as a basis. That's number two. Number three, they propose that they have the only solution. So again, you take someone like Dave Asprey. Hey, you're out of shape. You're consuming coffee that's got all these toxins in it. It's having all these adverse effects on you. Buy my bulletproof coffee. It doesn't have anything in it. It's the greatest thing ever. So those are my 3 main sticking points of individuals that would be classified as fanatics or pseudo-experts. How do you find my analysis to be? Or do you see those same sort of characteristics in those individuals and, the ones that are actually making this a harder project to help get people in shape?
Right. No, for sure I do. That's the thing. Like it's all about driving your point and it's all about money. And that's the problem with the whole fight that we have, because there's so much money in pushing these products, pushing these ideas. But what we're selling isn't a tangible thing. It's not a super marketable thing. It's not something you can get on the cover of the magazines, buy my plan, which is just, eat what you want and research it. So that's the main problem. It's really hard to make something, go mainstream and go viral and get picked up when, there's not really a tangible thing to market. So yeah, definitely. So they hit on that nerve of people wanting that and, just exploit it.
Do you find that the scientific and research side of the fitness industry has a communication problem, as in they are viewed not as quote unquote like entertaining? They're not something that's sexy. They're boring. Is that do you think there's a problem with how maybe we're presenting ourselves to those individuals, and that we instead should look at ways to communicate emotionally or try to get them to be more persuasive? How do you feel about that?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely do. And part of it is the problem where there's not enough of us that are really trying to get it out there. So, we have a big problem where this type of information in these circles, in the whole online fitness community, in the bodybuilding.com community, we all know about it. And some people follow it, some people don't. But some of the resistance I sort of meet, especially when I post things on bodybuilding.com, is we've all known about this since 2010. It's not new information. We keep, compounding it and believing it more and more just because we're exercising it. But so there is actually some pushback in this community as well. It hasn't been too bad for this, but a lot of people, really when I first started it and still are like, everyone knows this. Why the hell are you doing this? Oh, another one of these things. You're like, well, look, none of the real world knows about this. Like, just because our little small section that feels like the real world knows about it doesn't mean anybody else does. My own family can still hardly ever believe it when I do these. I've been doing this since 2011, and every time I start a new thing, I have friends who I've known since grade school who are asking me questions saying, oh my God, this is unbelievable. I'm like, yeah. So that's the thing. We have to figure out how to, get the personalities out there and then get the platform for them to speak to the rest of the world and then get enough people following. Because, even my YouTube, it's not that big. There are some that are, that are bigger. You have people like Matt Ogus and stuff like that who do follow it. But, I mean, they're still not huge. They still don't have 5 million YouTube subscribers. They're still not on mainstream media. You never see them, getting interviewed on the Today Show or anything like that. Like, it's still very, very small. And so that's the thing that, I'm trying to break through, and not even close to there yet. But that's why I sort of hope that doing extreme things like this and then everyone else pushing stuff will somehow make those stories start to go mainstream. So that's the thing we got to figure out.
Yeah. So, and that's actually, that's a good statement, because I actually, our next question, I'm going to have some solution ideas, and maybe me and you can go back and forth on that. But in the meantime, So I also think too, now the people that we follow, like the researchers, like Alan, who I think, is top notch for nutrition. A couple of these other guys, Brad Schoenfeld, Lyle McDonald, some of these guys that are on Facebook. I think they make their content for people like me, other health fitness professionals. And I think that that we should look to either create individuals like yourself, like your YouTube series. I think is fantastic. It's entertaining, but it's also informational. And I think that's, instead of us, being on Facebook going, oh, hey, did you know the newest study has 25 grams of protein and 40 grams of carbs? And it's too, I think the average person will scroll right past that. They're posting 6 paragraphs of information. It's great for me. I love it. I can't get enough of it. But even the podcasts that these guys I look up to do, it's just 2 of them, and they're, oh, the latest this is this. Oh, the vitamin mineral D is like, it's not in a digestible format currently to push it mainstream and get people to get on board with it. So I think if we can either have somebody bridge this gap or get them on board with us and get them to start doing more of this. And I know it probably seems like maybe even childish to them or on a lower level, because they have to I have to go to entertainment. Unfortunately, people nowadays, they pick up their phone, they go right on social media, they want to be entertained, their attention spans are short. That's the arena we have to battle. So here are a couple of ideas I want to float by you. And they're mainly a way that I think that maybe we could get this messaging out about things like an ice cream diet and what calories really mean. First one is maybe do more debates. If you saw the Alan Aragon and Gary Taubes, that was all over social media. The actual interview hasn't been released for, public legality purposes. Somebody owns the right to it or what have you. But it hasn't been released. But that was a big thing for us is I think there's like a 1-minute clip. And he absolutely just crushed them in the 1-minute clip. And everybody put their hands up, out. They believe in Alan. I think we should push that more. Let's get our experts out there and invite these guys. So what if Dave Asprey doesn't come on? Then that works in your favor. You say, we invited him on to do a debate to talk about bulletproof coffee and the toxins, and he won't come on. I think that really starts it, because people, like you mentioned earlier, UFC, when we were talking before we started, you're a big fan of UFC. People like to see combativeness or at least conflict. So how do you feel about that? Getting maybe some of the smartest minds, because look, we're right. Like, we're not out here having to push, sugar is the enemy or push Shakeology. Like, I'm happy with where we are. Like, we don't have to overly explain things. So how would you feel about that? If we had just people take on more debates, try to get the word out there, try to have discussion. Discussion is good. Debate's good.
Yeah. It is. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. That would be anything that gets it out there, and especially if, debates can be posted, like you said, little short clips on Facebook that people are going to share, anything that gets the message out there, because that's the problem. So many people haven't even heard of this. Like, it's not just that, it'd be great if we get to the point where we're just fighting people disagreeing with it, but it's such an alien concept to so many people. And that's the thing, getting people on things. Like the other day, Alan posted something where Gary Taubes talked about him on Joe Rogan's podcast and mentioned that Alan had beat him in a debate. And Joe said that he actually knew who Alan was and had talked to him about getting him on the podcast before, but for whatever reason it had fallen through. Like, if he could get on Joe's podcast, I mean, that would be phenomenal. So many people. Like, that's my goal. I tweet Joe Rogan probably every day, because that's my dream, is to try to get, if I can get this on to Joe's podcast, because I love Joe Rogan. He's awesome, but he's very into that whole,
Yes.
sugar's bad, he does keto and all that stuff. So that would be the thing, getting someone onto a podcast like that, getting somebody onto the news, anything. So, yeah, definitely if we could start engaging those people, and even if they don't respond, like I'm always posting on, like I have all those Bulletproof Coffee, all those things liked on Facebook, and I'm always posting things when they post stuff. And, maybe somebody sees it here and there, one person at a time, but if we could, figure something like that out. So I'd like to, I'm going to ask Alan why he didn't get on Joe Rogan's podcast, because that would be so
absolutely.
He gets like 80 million downloads a week.
And I tell you what, and actually Joe is probably one of the perfect people to bring on our side of the industry, and I'll tell you why. Although, like you mentioned, Joe is more into the keto and the sugar and that, I've also watched a podcast with him. I forget who he had on. He was talking to somebody about Dave Asprey and Bulletproof Coffee. At one point in time, Dave went on to Joe Rogan's podcast and was talking about all those toxins in the coffee and all the nonsense. Joe believed him and started actually selling the Bulletproof Coffee. Like Joe Rogan's website or what have you, they were selling it. And then the episode that I watched, he essentially was talking to this female, and he said, you know what, we had Dave on here. He's got a real problem with, he always says things like they're facts, and they're not. He's full of S all the time. And actually, we had to pull his Bulletproof Coffee. Like, so he no longer sells it, so he's able to actually look at things and reverse his opinion if he's wrong. I think he's open-minded enough so that you get people like Alan on there to have a discussion with Joe. It can't do anything but help. I think that it would be beautiful. So follow up with Alan. Get his ass on there. Get him on there. That'd be fantastic. I think the other thing that we should do, and we're partly doing it now, is social media. Whether people like it or not, social media is almost like the internet, like in general. Like there isn't any, like when people go on or like they pick their phone up and go on it, they're on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter. They're not like even just like on Yahoo anymore or AskJeeves.com. Like they're on social media looking for answers. And so with everybody's attention going there, there's an area of an opportunity where someone like yourself is posting these YouTube videos. It might take 6 months to a year to get picked up. But if you put it out there on social media, all it takes is a couple share buttons, share. It starts to build momentum passively without you really having to do anything to actively market. Obviously, there's things we should do to put that there. But I think if we those experts that I mentioned earlier, if they were to engage more, do something like a live Facebook Q&A, you know what I mean? And just have people ask questions like the average people. If they can get that going, posting, like you mentioned, videos that are actually a combination of entertainment and information, that's the first step. Instead of, the only time I see them post, and God bless them, is like research studies. And to me, again, it's fantastic because I read all of it. I read every word of it, and if it makes sense to me, we start incorporating these different, as the latest research comes out, and someone has to do it. You know what I mean? Like we need people in the lab doing that, but they can do both. And that's what I want them to encourage to do, is start doing this, and I think we'll start bridging that gap more. You agree with that? Social media as a tool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's the best. It's the biggest thing. I mean, it's crazy. Like, even if back to how powerful something like Joe's podcast would be, like when Alan, who, like I said, does face that problem of the people outside of this community want it, like he made one post when I first started this about the project that you saw it on, and my YouTube grew by over 50% overnight. Like, so if you can get those people who are already well known getting the attention and then getting the attention of bigger celebrities, then yeah, I mean, it could grow. That's the thing. All it takes is the right one or two people seeing this and starting to post it and starting to support it. And before you know it, it's going to be everywhere. It just spreads so fast. But the problem is we don't have any real celebrities. We've got our celebrities like Alan and stuff, but we don't have any mainstream celebrities doing this. You see all the time actual movie stars pushing this new diet, pushing this, and, it goes crazy. And then usually, I just read something the other day, the guy who came up with the diet that Kate Hudson sort of made famous is going to prison now because of all the lies told about the diet. I don't know the ins and outs of why he's going to prison for it. But so you have all these celebrities making these diets huge. If we could just somehow pull those people in, get one or two of them to jump on this train and support it, like that's the momentum we need. We just have to get out of this basement, dark corner of the subculture we have. And yeah, that's what we're trying to do.
So this has been such an positive conversation, right? You know, talking about what you're up to, talking about what we should do moving forward. We're definitely going to have to bring you back after the 100 days to follow up and get through all that, and then maybe even branch off and talk more about, you know, some sort of these communication things we're discussing now. If you had one takeaway message now for the audience, so now this could go back to, you know, basic nutrition and healthy habits, because I think that's where the battle needs to be fought for me. Like we always teach our clients, it's just forming good habits. Just like take it slow, 1 week at a time. Let's try something, you know, like, okay, you drink Mountain Dew. Let's try Diet Mountain Dew this week. Just do all week, just Diet Mountain Dew. Don't worry about anything else. And then once they kind of get that, and that becomes a solid habit, then we'll move to the next thing. So that's how I approach it. What would be your takeaway, your one message to people about when it comes to basic nutrition and how they can start living a healthier life like today?
Well, the main thing that I sort of, you know, try to push with all this, it's my approach to nutrition, it's my approach to fitness, is that the simpler it is and the less stressful it is on your life, the better. Like, even if you love fitness, even if it's what you do, like, it still consumes a lot of your life that you want to be doing other things with. Like, I have a family, and so even though, like, my job right now is fitness related, I still want to free up as much time for unfitness related stuff as possible. So if I'm having anything I can do to take out stress is optimal. So that's why, like, when we focus on optimal timing, optimal foods, optimal workouts, going from the, you know, this workout to that workout, what time we do it, like all that stuff just compounds, even if they're little things, into just a whole day that's full of worrying about optimizing this, worry about optimizing that. So it's about finding, you know, what works for you in your life that's also, you know, backed by, you know, being real and not you getting taken advantage of. So that's the whole point behind this whole thing, is just making people's lives as livable and stress-free as they can be.
And you know what? And this is what excites me. I can't wait for the day, because it's going to happen. I don't know when exactly, but I know it's going to happen, and our side of this industry is going to rise up and just kick the S out of these people, and people are actually going to start to get results. Like, we spend, as a population, we spend more money than ever on health and fitness, and our obesity rate, although slowed, is still increasing. Like, it's not working. And I actually blame a lot of it on people in my industry, even personal trainers. I made an Instagram video the other day. So we train a lot of high school athletes, and what I'm noticing is other coaches putting out about speed training. Speed training is such a buzzword, and what all they're really teaching are like footwork, like fast feet. That's not how you generate speed. If you look at like someone like in the Olympics that sprints, they gallop. They are powerful, explosive athletes. They're not just because you can like that's. And so what I hate, and again, it's tough, but we've got trainers and we've got a lot of people that are just teaching the wrong things. And I think if we bring some focus to this, everybody's going to rise up, including those that are probably putting out misinformation now. I think there's an opportunity for them to reverse course. Someone like Joe Rogan, again, he's going to be a powerful player in this. I think you get someone like Alan on that show. Every time I listen to Alan, it's like magic trick. It's like he talks and it's like, wait a minute, that's so right every time. And it's never, and I'm somebody that's really rational about my thinking. I try to criticize any new opinion immediately and almost try to like make sure they prove it. He's magical with words. He's good. He's a good communicator. He's a good educator. Again, this conversation is just very, very, very exciting. So what I want to do before we wrap this up is go ahead. If people want to learn more about you, Anthony, where can they go to find your journey? So go and give your YouTube, your YouTube channel, your website, all the stuff about you, so that they can hop on board and get in with all this.
Sure, awesome. Well, my website, which will connect you to everything I have, social media, is just absandicecream.com. That'll take you to my YouTube. That'll take everything. YouTube is just Abs and Ice Cream as well. And feel free to add me on Facebook. A lot of people have added. I have an Abs and Ice Cream page and, my personal page, Anthony Howard Crow. I'm the only Anthony Howard Crow in the entire world, so I'm easy to find. So feel free to add me on there. I'm way more active on my regular one than I am on my Abs and Ice Cream Facebook. So, yeah, just go to my website, like I said, absandicecream.com. And I do a blog there. I just recently started last week, making sure Monday through Friday I always have a blog post, and then post the videos on there too. So really easy to connect with if you want to find me.
Perfect. Everybody go and do that right now. And Anthony's been very interactive. That's how we got this, this podcast set up, is that, I added him. And at the time, I remember when Alan shared it, I'm thinking like, oh, this guy's probably some hot, like super popular. I'll never have time. I'll just like follow it along. Next, like the first time you start liking my stuff, I said, oh, cool. This is what we need. We need engagement. You know, we can't have people that don't respond to one another. So again, everybody, I encourage everybody, abs and ice cream, add it up. You can even ask him questions. I'm sure he'll respond on every single comment and question, stuff like that. And it's a positive movement. Yeah, he's doing it for positive reasons. And I think, the message is clear that it's about how much food we're eating. And if we take an honest look at it, most individuals that are average and overweight, we're just eating most likely too much, and we're not moving enough. We're spending too much of the day seated. And if we start to reverse these things just a little bit at a time, instead of looking at a 30-day cleanse and say, oh, that's what I have to get all my results in 30 days, let's start doing 6 months, right? Let's start doing 12-month goals. And if we start to take this approach and just go slowly and form new habits, there's no doubt that will increase the chances of success. So, Anthony, again, I want to thank you for coming on. It's been a blast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Perfect. And everybody, just like we do in every episode, you are free to make up your own opinion. Do not just believe me or Anthony because I said so. I want you to think about this, research it further, go look up calories, go look up people like Alan Aragon, go research some of these guys and arrive at your own opinions. I think it's very, very important that we don't form our own little tribe and cult where people just believe me just because they like me. I want you to actually think about our different opinions and, again, arrive at your own conclusions. So thank you, and I will see you all next week.